Hello, welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I'm sometimes considered hairy.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss Bigfoot and the Hendersons, also known as Harry and the Hendersons. Iain, will you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows the Hendersons, led by John Lithgow, who plays George Henderson. Their family have just returned from a trip camping when they unexpectedly hit Bigfoot. They decide to take him home, but realise that they've got now a problem where Bigfoot is actually enjoying living the life that they are living. As he goes around destroying their house and getting in the way of things, they realise that they are faced with the task of taking him back to his own life.
Bigfoot is kind of one of those mythological creatures.
Yeah.
It's like, is he real? Does he exist? Is the Loch Ness Monster real? And, you know, throughout the sort of 60s and 70s, there was a huge slew of Bigfoot and Sasquatch movies.
July 1960. While flying over a remote section of northern Canada, a Canadian aircraft patrol pilot suddenly encountered the huge shape of a strange, unknown giant. But what was it? And where did it come from? Now comes a motion picture that explores this incredible mystery. Don't miss Sasquatch, rated G.
It started to die out a little bit in the 80s, and then in 87 it was revived for a family kids movie.
Yeah.
It's like you've gone through all these horror movies and then it's ended up here. And it didn't even begin as a film. The original concept was for it to be an American sitcom.
Yeah.
But they thought that the idea was too good that it had to be made into a film. And then subsequently, many years after the film, in 1991, Harry and the Hendersons became a TV sitcom with with 72 episodes in total. Yeah. Of course, Kevin Peter Hall, who is famous for playing the Predator, is the one in the suit in the film and will continue to play Harry in the sitcom, I think, for only a few episodes before somebody else put on the costume.
Yeah.
I also think it's amazing that Rick Baker, the master, one of the masters in special effects within the horror genre, one of the best transformation sequences ever with American Werewolf in London. He also collaborated on the transformation in The Howling. He worked on films like Videodrome, Hellboy, Gremlins 2. This man is a master at his craft. And, and they brought him in to do Harry. And it's like, you can only imagine the monster that Rick Baker would create. But no, they've made this lovable looking Bigfoot. I also think it's amazing that Rick Baker has said that Harry is his favourite and, in his opinion, his greatest work. And it kind of shows.
I had read a lot about Rick Baker. Being a science fiction fan, he was an idol. I mean, after American Werewolf in London and stuff, he was basically, in my mind, the only one who could do Harry. And I think through effects people that we knew, somebody basically said, this is where Rick Baker lives, and I sort of took it upon myself just to knock on his door.
I believe he actually came to my home, and he told me that he wanted to do this film about Bigfoot. He said, I think you're the only guy in the world that can do this. What I liked was he was so concerned about the character of Harry, and that he had to have this range of emotions to be able to make this movie work. And I like that because primates have many times in films have gotten a bad rap, and gorillas especially are very gentle animals, even though they're big and ferocious.
I consider myself very lucky. I watched this film when I was a kid, back in the late 80s, early 90s, when it was started to finally get shown on TV. Kids movies back then, Batteries Not Included, Short Circuit, Flight of the Navigator, the list goes on. There are so many. And Harry and the Hendersons, for me, is still one of those great films that you can just watch whenever you just want to chill out. Saturday morning, Sunday, Saturday afternoon, Christmas time, any holidays, Harry and the Hendersons is on, and you can just chillax to it. So now that I'm older and a parent, I was very, very happy when my son turned around to me and said, I'm into Bigfoot now. And I'm like, really? Oh, you totally need to watch this film. And on the exact same day that Gary said, we've got to review Harry and the Hendersons, my wife rang me and said, guess what we've just picked up on DVD for £1? And I was like, no fucking way. And so I watched this film 4 times. 3 times with my son and once just alone for this review. And it's just great.
So do you recommend Harry and the Hendersons to everybody out there?
No.
It's just great. The whole setup with John Lithgow and his family. You've got Melinda Dillon playing his wife Nancy Henderson. You've got his son Ernie and his daughter Sarah. The whole family element for me just works. Maybe I'm being biased because I watched the film 4 times, so it's saturated my view. But each time that I watch this, you've got this brother-sister kind of relationship going on between Ernie and Sarah, and it just feels real to me. You know, you've got this whole relationship between George and Ernie, which later on in the film you realise that George Henderson is trying to replicate the relationship that he's had with his father, but at the same time, you know, he goes through a character change where he doesn't want to be this gun-toting hunter shooting everything that he can. He wants to actually just draw. He wants to make nice pictures. But none of that would ever come about until they hit Bigfoot.
Holy shit! Sorry, Dad.
That's okay. I was looking for the right words.
And so they think it's dead. So they're like, okay, we'll take it with us. That's a great idea. And so, you know, they stick it on top of the car. I don't know how they managed to get him up there. And they drive off. And then you get the comedy scene of Bigfoot sort of peering through the windshield. Family screams, hits the brakes, and they kill him again. They're like, okay, well, what do we do now? Let's take him with us.
Well, you've got that whole relationship thing between, like I said, the wife and the husband, where the first incident, she says to him, oh, we can't leave it in the road. It could be suffering. And so when George determines that it's dead the first time, and they put it on top of the roof, you think, oh yeah, they're just going to sell it now. They're just going to make money, get a bit rich. But it was when Bigfoot flies off the top of the car again. And George is like, I need to get out of the car. And his wife's like, no, just don't. And he's just like, well, we can't leave it in the road suffering now, can we? And it harkens back to her line. So you think, well, yeah, you've kind of got to go make sure that it's dead this time. Plus, you're going to get rich out of it.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Are you really sure?
Really sure.
Remember, you were sure before.
It's the comedy. I'm not the biggest fan of comedy films anyway.
Really?
And so, you know, most of the time I'm watching this, I'm just like, that was supposed to be funny. That was supposed to be funny. I'm not really laughing. But as soon as Bigfoot's on screen, I'm just kind of compelled to look at it.
Oh, yes.
I just think that the outfit and the costume and the makeup is so exceptionally good. You know, I looked at this and went, this is like the pinnacle of a man in a suit.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm a big fan of the Planet of the Apes films, and I was looking at Bigfoot, and then I'm looking at War for the Planet of the Apes, where it's all CGI.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you know, it's taken that long. It's taken 30 years to get from this to finally CGI that actually is comparable. But I'm still compelled to watch the practical effect more so. It's still just amazing to look at.
See, I had the same thought while I was watching this film, and there are rare movies that we could actually say, oh yes, that movie deserves a remake and they should go about and do this and that. And like what you just said, with the practical effects in this movie, you'd instantly say, no, shouldn't remake it, practical effects are amazing. But with the attention to detail that they have now in CGI, and with the amazing work that like Andy Serkis can do with motion capture, if they did that, they could get a Bigfoot that looks almost as good. I'd say almost, because Kevin Peter Hall just pulls the suit off amazingly. Almost as good as what this film delivered. And it brings me to that first reveal where, George wakes up in bed and goes down to have a look at it, because he still can't believe that he's captured this thing and he's going to sell it and his family are going to get rich and they're going to live the high life. But he realizes it's not on top of the roof of the car. Goes back into his house and he trips on something, drops his torch, and as the torch spins around, you get those shadow effect on the wall. It's really, really well done. And then the flashlight just reveals Bigfoot in the fridge. And your first initial reaction is to be scared. This thing's like fucking 8 foot tall, covered in hair, drinking milk out of the carton, roaring really, really loud.
I mean, John Lithgow's a tall actor anyway, and when he's dwarfed by Bigfoot, you can really get some scale.
And then you just get the whole interaction of the family. The son comes in. He's not afraid. He's actually like, oh my God, this is amazing. I can't wait to tell people. The wife comes in. She's terrified. She thinks it's going to eat them all. The way she grabs the Glade air freshener and just kind of lures Bigfoot away. That for me is the initial reaction of, it's not aggressive. This man animal thing is lost. He's been taken out of his natural element and put into this world. And so the first thing he's going to go for is, woodberries.
Yeah, and this is a straight up fish out of water story. Where he's just wandering around the house and he bashes his head. So he's like, well, I'll fix that, breaks that. And he's going around and he's eating the plants. And the family are just tiptoeing around outside. You see Bigfoot looking in the fish tank.
Well, they're not tiptoeing, are they? They're afraid, so they rush outside and he destroys the house. It's the way the mum's whacking on the window. She's like, stop that! Stop it! And he just whacks the window back like, go away. And then he comes across the deer head that obviously George has shot. And he's just so... The look on Bigfoot's face, delivered to you by Kevin Peter Hall, does everything any script can do. The mystified look he has in his face of, how is this head here? And yet there's nothing on the other side, and has to punch through the wall to grab the other side. And you just see this hairy mitt flattening the wall like, where is it? Where is it gone? And it would later come on into other elements where he starts to find, was it the grandma's mink soul? And he wants to go and dig it. He wants to bury it. And the way he looks at the mum, and the mum's just like, don't look at me like that. And you're like, she gets it. He's got this look in his eyes of, I'm not trying to be aggressive, but you keep shooting everything. I mean, the main meat of the story is the family trying to adjust their life around Harry being in their home. But at the same time, George's realization that the only real thing that they can do is either hide him in their house or take him back to the wild. Because he tries to ring the police at one point. And the policeman, he's being honest to the policeman over the phone. He's watching Bigfoot walk around his house, destroying everything. And he's saying to the police officer, look, he's doing this and he's doing that. You need to send somebody. And the policeman says, well, yeah, we can lock down your neighborhood. We can evacuate all your neighbors and we can go in there guns toting and turn into a war zone. Is that what you really want? And George is like, well, no. But it's that sudden realization that George realizes that he doesn't want to cause harm to Bigfoot. But if he reveals to anybody in the outside their home that they have this Bigfoot, everybody's going to come. You're going to have a media frenzy. You're going to have a public frenzy. Even the most, nicest, happiest scientists are going to want to poke and prod and dissect and try to figure out how this thing works.
So he decides that the best thing to do is to take it back where he found it. And it's a comical sequence where he's come back with loads of takeaway. Loads of burgers. And he offers the burger to Bigfoot, who just lobs it straight away.
Yeah, lobs the meat away.
Evidently, he's a vegetarian. Who would have guessed? And so he tempts him then with the fish. Yeah. He likes the fish, though. So he ends up in the car. But then the family are like, okay, we're going to have a quick gathering. And Bigfoot escapes.
Yeah, well, Ernie's really upset that they have to take Bigfoot back because obviously as a small boy, he's grown attached to this thing. He kind of loves it as a pet, but at the same time as a family member as well. But the father explains to him, look, we can't keep him here. And I that's the thing I don't understand is why Bigfoot left. You normally get the explanation that this family member who wants to leave doesn't want the family to be upset. But you see Bigfoot crying in the back of the car. And I can't understand if he thinks it's safer for him to leave and go and make his own way home, or he doesn't want to leave and he feels like the family are kicking him away.
I did actually laugh for the first time when he comes outside and he sees the car and he reacts to it. It's just like he remembers that thing hurt.
I want to check and see if that's the same make of car that they had in Poltergeist 2.
The Freelings car.
Because I remember how much damage that car took in that movie, and then I see how much damage this car takes, and I'm like, those cars don't do very well. I think the Griswolds had one as well.
This car is angry.
Yeah. But Bigfoot is now loose in Seattle, and he's constantly coming across new things. Like he comes across the freeway, he sees the mountains in the distance and wants to go home, but he can't cross the freeway because the traffic is just screaming back and forth. He wanders round the neighborhood a bit, sees a woman preparing a chicken in a hot pot, and turns around and sees two old people climbing into a jacuzzi, and kind of puts one and one together and makes 7. That's how we cook humans. You've got the whole incident where he breaks into the woman's house and she goes downstairs with the gun and she thinks she sees a mouse, but it's not. It's Bigfoot's toe. And she whacks it, and it's the way he reacts. It's like, oh shit, that fucking hurt. But with all these sightings going on, the local population obviously decide that they're going to just arm up and they're going to hunt this thing down. And luckily George works at the local gun store with his father. And like I said, this is where the relationship stuff would come in. And I never noticed this before when I was younger. But you have George's relationship with his father, and his father doesn't want him to do anything on his own. Yeah, you like painting and drawing? Nah, here's a gun. I want you to hunt. I want you to work in the gun store with me. And you can see that George kind of replicates that with his own son. His own son wants to do his own thing, but George is like, nope, we're going to do it this way and we're going to do it that way. And it's not until George's dad makes him draw a Bigfoot poster for their gun store that George says to his wife, it's like drawing a wanted poster for your best friend. My dad wants claws and teeth and blood. And as the audience, and George knows as well, that that's not really what Harry is like. So when he delivers this gentle looking poster to his dad, and I think his dad says, I wanted King Kong, you gave me a goddamn gerbil. But it's the way George reacts to his dad going over his drawing again and adding fangs and scary eyes that George is like, no, that's mine. I loved it. I love him. And George realizes that he needs to go and rescue Harry.
Well, yeah, because at this point Harry's been spotted here, there and everywhere around town, and so there is now a public kind of frenzy to start hunting Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Which is why the store is filled with gun nuts that basically just want to go out there and hunt and kill Bigfoot. We also have another hunter as well that we've been following through the film.
Yeah, Jacques.
Jacques Lafleur. And he has the reputation of encountering Bigfoot in his early life, which is put him on this warpath, basically, to hunt down and kill Bigfoot and kind of prove that it exists.
Yeah.
To exonerate himself, it would seem.
Yeah, everybody thinks he's crazy, but you kind of go along with him because you've seen Bigfoot, you know it's real, and you know this hunter's getting really close. And it brings up this, well, I wouldn't say tension. It's not like it's suspenseful. You kind of know what's going to happen. But the fact that you've got George trying to find Harry, along with Jacques trying to find Harry, and all you want is Harry to get away. him to be safe, because he's so gentle and so nice that if anything bad happens to him, you generally feel bad as well.
I did actually feel really quite sympathetic with Harry when he's wandering through the streets at night and he comes up to the window of televisions.
Yes.
And earlier in the day, George had been captured on news footage arguing with this cyclist who claims that Bigfoot almost mauled him to death. And, he completely makes this eyewitness account turn out to be false. And the news cameramen are interested in what George had to say. And so now Harry's watching this playback on the television. He pulls the TV off the stand and walks away with it, just licking the screen, which I thought was a bit weird.
Well,
but he's showing his affection for this family.
Yes.
And now he is completely, fish out of water. And he keeps pulling the plugs out, and he drops the TV, and he's like, oh, George is on this screen now. And he pulls that one out and drops it. But then it's not long before the rest of the hunters do actually find him.
At the same time, we've got Don Amanci playing Dr. Wainwright, I believe it is. And George has gone to him seeking advice about what they should do. Can Bigfoot be domesticated, or should he just be kept to the wild? And I recognise Don Amanci from Cocoon. Like I said, it's another one of those classic 80s movies that you just kind of just let it wash over you with positivity, because that's what it's filled with. But he's such a brilliant actor. The first meeting between him and George, he plays it off that he's not the doctor, because he's experienced an interaction with Bigfoot at some point in his life, and people have just laughed him off and said he's crazy. So trying to chase Bigfoot and having no evidence come along, you're actually glad, because you know that when Bigfoot gets found, George will be able to bring him to this doctor and say, look, everything you did for the last 20 years was building up to this moment. It's a really nice moment. But George has chased Harry throughout the streets. I love John Lithgow trying to mimic the sound.
It was awful. You know what? I think even the editors knew that his howling was awful, because every time he did it, it cross-faded to police sirens.
I want this quadrant airtight.
But it's the fact that he comes to the dumpster, and Harry's been hiding in the dumpster, probably looking for food, and Jacques Lafleur has come along and tried to capture him, and Bigfoot has pulled him into the dumpster as well, knocked him out briefly, and George is like, I'm gonna get you out there, I'm gonna save the day. So he jumps into the garbage truck. What a crazy ass scene. I mean, you've got Jacques and Bigfoot fighting over the gun. Then Bigfoot manages to get the gun and points it to his head, because he's looking about how it works. Jacques 2 seconds away from shooting him in the face, and George has to hit the brakes. And so the dumpster just goes flying off the top, skids along the floor. And I just love the way that Harry kind of steps out like, oh, that was a bit dizzy.
So he manages to get him back into his car?
Yeah, he manages to get him back into the family car and take him back home. And they're preparing to get Harry back into the wild, but obviously they need some kind of help, so they call in Dr. Wainwright. I love the sequences with their neighbour, Irene. She's an annoying, nosy neighbour, which really works. She plays the character really well. But the different incidents they have, like when Harry lobs the fender of the car, the bumper of the car into the pool, and then they decide to wash Harry in the pool as well. And the swimming pool guy's like, have you got a cat? No. Oh, it's just a hairball then. And it cuts to Harry sat in front of the TV just watching the Addams Family while they're brushing his hair and they're hair drying him. You might do that face, but he just looks so cute. And you just can't... Not only can you not believe that he looks so cute from a child point, but as an adult point as well, it amazes you of how articulate the mask is. You know, how well the eyes see through the mask, you know, how the mouth works, and then just everything on screen, the whole body, his hands, his legs, everything just looks brilliant. But they call in Dr. Wainwright.
It did make me laugh when the mum said, yeah, I've cooked a roast. And then they all sit down to eat. And then they're like, well, where's the roast? Where's the meat? She was like, oh, it's buried out in the garden. Yeah. I was like, that I got a laugh out of that because it was a callback to an earlier setup.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they're all eating. They're all vegetarian now.
Yeah, depend on the guest. Yeah.
Right. But it is one of those, setups where he's just talking about how implausible and how unbelievable Bigfoot is. There's never been no such thing. And all the while Bigfoot's like, just may as well be dancing right behind him. And it's like, I'm sure he would have cast a shadow, the weight of him, you would have felt the presence of him there, but it's a comedy, it's a setup, we know the joke's coming, the family are trying not to acknowledge Bigfoot and trying to tell him to go away, but before you know it, they all crack up laughing because they're just like, ha, you don't believe in Bigfoot, but he's still behind you.
I love Don Amanchi's delivery of that story. It works so well. The camera is just on Dr. Wainwright with Bigfoot in the background. And the way Dr. Wainwright is just putting across this story about how he's lost everything in his life because he chased this, implausible dream. But he doesn't want George to go through the same hardships that he did. So better just to knock it on the head. And Bigfoot stood right there. And like you said, with payoff, where they say to him, oh, we taught him to sit. And he's like, you taught him to sit?
Sit!
Oh! Great! You taught him how to sit?
Oh, yes, he's so smart, too. I mean, George has taught him how to sit.
To sit!
Coming to the end of the film, like Gary said, you already know how it's going to turn out. A lot of these 80s kids films all ended with a happy ending. So at this point that there's not going to be any blood, guts or gore or anything majorly offensive towards the end. But I still really, really enjoy the ending. LaFleur is arrested by the police. And he finds out George's information, so he chases them to the house, and there's this whole car chase then of them jumping into Dr. Wainwright's car and driving it to this secluded spot that they can release Harry.
There is a really annoying sequence here, which I was just like, I've grin and bared the film for the most part. It's like
grin and bared.
But the sequence when they're on the motorway and it's ram-packed with traffic.
Yes, yeah.
And they see the police car go past. And, and then they're still stuck in traffic and they can see that LaFleur is chasing them. And so Harry mimics the sirens.
You say you grin and bared it. What would you rather have expected from that sequence? Them to get out and just run along the freeway?
They could have just got in and followed behind the police car. That's what I expected them to do.
No, because you're playing it for kids. This film is
I know that.
This film is for children to sit down for an hour and 2 hours and just get wrapped up in a really nice story. So even though, yes, as a parent, this could probably be very annoying if your child decides to mimic a police siren after this movie. But it's that whole part as well where they finally get to the secluded spot, but LaFleur is right behind them. And George has to stand up in front of Harry and he's just telling him to go. Get out of here. We don't want you anymore. And he even gives him a smack in the face. And you just, like we said, the emotion on Kevin Peter Hall's face through the mask. His eyes come closed, his jaw solidifies, and he just stands there like, how dare you hit me? But it's for your own good, Harry. You've got to get out of here because LaFleur is wanting to shoot and stuff you. And it's the realization as well where Ernie turns around and says, oh, we can follow his footprints in the snow. Now, Yeah, okay. Implausibility, the snow is just there for this final bit. You know, the way they drove up to the mountains. I don't know mountains in Seattle as well, so I don't know how snowfall works over there. But to me, the snow just seems placed there just to keep this ending going. But it's still awesome because they put on fake footprints and wander around, and Lafleur is following all these footprints like, oh my God, where are they all?
He thinks there's a whole tribe of them.
Yeah. And then Harry reveals himself and Lafleur just starts unloading with his rifle, trying to shoot him. And little Bob, their dog little Bob, comes along and leaps up, and Lafleur throws him away, and Harry catches him and then grabs hold of Lafleur. And I do really love that shot because you see the actor playing Lafleur is so tiny, where you've got this full frontal view of Harry grabbing him, and you're just like, shit, what's he going to do? And the way he knees Harry in the bollocks. It's just his facial expressions. It's like, oh! He chases Lafleur down, and finally everybody catches up. And George grabs Lafleur, and he's really angry. Like, you won't kill him. And he starts bashing him off the back of the car. And Harry steps in between them. And I think this is what really works for the film as well, where Harry has more interaction in this movie with the other actors than, say, the robots in Batteries Not Included. He may not have as a strong personality as Johnny Five from Short Circuit, but he's there. He is part of the family. He's been accepted into the family. But when he sees the family fighting, being not used to it and not an aggressive creature himself, he has to stand in the way and say, no, you're not going to do that. But it's Lafleur's way of, you're going to let him kill me? Don't let him kill me. And he starts stroking his head. Just starts gently stroking his head, and he makes that little cooing sound as well. It's really, really quite cute.
So even the bad guys became good guys. Nobody dies. Everyone lives happily ever after. And Harry goes back into the forest. And so does his dad.
Yeah.
And his mum. Yeah. And his little brother, sister.
Yeah.
A whole family of Sasquatches.
I find that coincidental that they're all just there as well.
Yeah, they were just watching. Yeah. I've only got one memorable scene and one scene that I'll say is a favourite scene. The memorable scene, only because it made me think.
Yeah.
And it's when he's questioning about whether you believe things exist or not.
Oh, that line was brilliant.
And he says, you know, you believe in baby pigeons, but have you ever seen one?
Have you ever seen a baby pigeon? Well, neither have I. But I got a hunch they exist.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
So
it made me question as well when I'm sat there like, how many things do you believe in but you've never seen?
Right.
You know?
And so as a favourite scene, it will be when Harry's first watching television. And I'm not sure of the film or the programme that they're watching, but there's a chimpanzee who's throwing food at a human character in the film,
yeah,
which just has Harry in stitches. And when Harry's laughing, you can't help but laugh with him.
Okay, I'll take him back.
What do you mean?
Yeah, you just any sequence with Harry in it's not necessarily a favourite or memorable, but it's compelling watching, just watching Kevin Peter Hall perform in that suit.
Yeah. Like I said at the start of this review, I'm very lucky with this film to have sat down and watched it with my son as well. So, for this review, I asked him what his favourite scenes and if he recommended it.
And so, Dillon, why don't you tell us your favourite scenes in Harry and the Hendersons?
My favourite scenes are the scene where Sarah shouts at Bigfoot and he roars at her. I like the scene where Bigfoot breaks the wall by the deer head because he is looking for its body but can't find it. this is my favourite scene. The scene where the dad says, we got some big guns, some big guns, but all our big ammo. And the dumpster scene because it makes me laugh.
So do you recommend Harry and the Hendersons to everybody out there?
No, but only to the not to children, but to the grown-ups, grandmas, granddads, and brothers and sisters.
Why not to children?
Because children don't want to hear swearing and all the bigger and all the different swear words in the movie.
Holy shit!
All of those favourite scenes are just brilliant. You know, like Gary said, any of the sequences in this film with Harry in, I absolutely love. You know, I love John Lithgow, I love Don Amanci, I love the whole family element. And like Dillon said, you have to be careful with this film when just sticking it on for children, because there are swear words in, and maybe some of the sequences might need a bit of explanation, you know, like the killing of the deer and the stuffing of the animals and things like that. If you have children now, I highly, highly recommend you getting a copy of it, sitting them down and just saying, we're watching this. If they lose interest after 20 minutes, just let them go off. They're probably a little bit too young to understand it. And yet you can still nostalgically remember how it made you feel and what age you were. If you're an old grump, maybe, yeah, it's not for you, but you might need to just go back, you know, and relive some of those monumental moments from your childhood.
Yeah, you know, I personally can't recommend and don't recommend this film to anybody.
Really?
I don't know anybody that right now that I could say, hey, you know what, you'd probably enjoy Bigfoot and the Hendersons.
Me?
They'd look at you like, what? Like, most people have probably forgotten this film even exists, to be honest. I would say this is a forgotten gem, and of all the other 80s films that you've mentioned, I would rather watch any one of those on any given day over this one. You know, this film is a heartfelt comedy. You know, John Lithgow is overacting like a crazy person. You know, it's one of the reasons why I've grown to love Jonathan Lithgow. It was from this film that when I saw Third Rock from the Sun, I was like, yes. I know him. Yeah. He was great in that, so I will watch him. And since then, you know, he's also proved himself as a fantastic villain in films as well. Still overacting like crazy.
Yes.
But just a fantastic artist. The film is cute, it's full of light-hearted moments, it's silly, and it's a fish-out-of-water story. You know, it's not my cup of tea. You know, it's not the sort of film I would ever sit down and choose to watch, ever. But because of Rick Baker's fantastic work in creating and designing the Harry costume, it's at least worth a mention. Yeah. It's at least worth having a look at some of the work that he did, because... you know, that man's an artist.
Yes, yes.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
A moment may be over, but you're still here with me. This love letter song beyond goodbye. The truth of us will never die. Our spirit